You have to love Mr. Anderson. All right, well, I think we're just about on time, so I think we'll get started. My name is Miranda Luna. I am the product manager for Windows Azure Mobile Services. How many of you are familiar with mobile services, might have seen Josh Twist give a talk, have maybe played around a little bit? All right, awesome. For those of you who have seen Josh talk, my accent leaves a little to be desired, but hopefully my hair makes up for it. And I make that joke with him a lot. Anyhow, so let me introduce my colleague Reed.
Hi, my name is Reed Simon. I am a consultant with Microsoft Consulting Services out of Washington, D.C. And I've recently taken on some work with Azure Mobile Services, which has been really exciting.
So just to give you guys an idea of the plan for today, we're going to try to spend as much time in the portal as possible. But we're going to start out by giving an overview to the service. It sounds like a few of you maybe haven't seen it much before, and that's totally fine. We'll take it slow. Feel free to interrupt me with questions. You can also ask me questions afterwards. Ask Reed. We'll be at the Azure booth today and tomorrow. So if something comes up, you're playing around later, you want help, we're around. So today we're going to be wiring up a Windows Store application. So we're going to be doing a little bit with data through Windows Azure SQL Database, push notifications through WNS, and authentication. And we are going to use Twitter today. If we have time, which I'm not sure we will based on kind of the scope we have today, we'll also wire a Windows Phone 8 application up into the same backend that we used for the Windows Store application. If we don't have time for that and you're curious about it, you can always find me later throughout the conference. Reed and I will be here. What I really want to make sure we focus on today are some of the newer features we released last week. And one of those is source control via local Git. Have any of you played much around with Azure websites, kind of seen the integration options they have there, local Git, GitHub, TFS? Yeah, good, couple nods. So the local Git will look pretty familiar to you guys. We don't have an out-of-the-box TFS or GitHub option today, but it's definitely on our radar, something that people ask us about a lot. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the custom API feature at the end, and just kind of touch on diagnostics and scale to give you guys an idea of how the app can grow and shrink with your different users' needs. So let's get started. Can you hit that? Thank you. One more time. Great. So this is basically Windows Azure Mobile Services in a nutshell. On the left-hand side, you see basically that we provide native SDKs for Windows Store, Windows Phone, Android, and iOS applications. We also offer an SDK for HTML5 JavaScript. Obviously, that would be more of a write once, run anywhere type option, and it works very well with Apache Cordova or Adobe PhoneGap. So technologies you're pretty familiar with, that's definitely a supported option. We also have a REST API that's pretty well documented that you can use to extend this core functionality to other client platforms. So for example, at a couple hackathons we've had people build BlackBerry 10 apps powered by mobile services. Definitely not something we thought would come this soon, but exciting nonetheless. And using that same REST API and checking out the SDKs that we have open sourced on GitHub, one of our community members actually was able to write an SDK for Android before we released the official one. So definitely a lot you can do there, keeping us on our toes. On the other side of that bracket, you're going to kind of see the core mobile services features and functionalities. First being storing data in the cloud. Right out of the box, you're going to see when we go through this in a minute. But right out of the box, you get a SQL database. That supports the MS SQL object. So any sort of querying you want to do, all the familiar tools and stuff like that, you're going to be good to go. I'm calling out Table, Blob, and Mongo, but I'll come to that in a second. User authentication via Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, and Google. Those are out-of-the-box solutions. We're going to walk you through how to set up Twitter authentication today. But essentially what you're going to need to do for any of those four is just go get credentials for an application through developer.twitter.com or developer.facebook.com. You'll register an app, and then you're just going to copy those credentials over to the mobile services, in the Windows Azure portal, and that'll all be stored securely on the server. Push notifications through WNS and MPNS. WNS being the way to send push notifications for Windows Store apps, and MPNS being the way you would do so for Windows Phone 8. APNS for iOS devices, and GCM, Google Cloud Messaging, for Android applications. On the very right-hand side, that's kind of where you're going to see, I put source control over there, it doesn't quite fit in, but the kind of custom logic. So source control via local Git, as I mentioned right now. So what that's really cool is not just can you have that kind of continuous integration story, but you can also upload and share your own node modules. That's something that you're going to see in that whole column. Are a lot of you guys C# guys? Node? C#? All right, a lot of nodding heads for C#. So currently, all of our server-side scripting is done in JavaScript, but the next thing we'll be rolling out, hopefully in the next few months, will be the ability to do C# on the server as well. So if it's a little unfamiliar today, or you're playing around later and you're like, I really just wish this was in C#, like that's coming. Scott Guthrie talked about that on his blog the other week. So source control via local Git, you can upload your own node modules. You can share those with between different custom API scripts, as well as with other users. Table scripts, so that SQL database that you get right when you create a mobile service. On any insert, read, update, delete, you can add a little bit of custom logic. So if you want to trigger an email upon successful registration or anything like that, whenever a new row is added, or maybe whenever there's a read, you just want to log that, you can absolutely do that through table scripts. Custom API is one of the new features we rolled out that I mentioned. And basically that does two things. It allows you to add some of that custom logic without being associated to a CRUD operation on a SQL database. Very useful in some cases. For example, through all these server scripting options, you can connect to other Windows Azure or third-party services. The Windows Azure third-party services would be through the Node module, or the Azure module for Node.js. So custom API is really great that's also kind of how you're going to be able to work with non-JSON data payloads. So if you wanted to do Windows periodic notifications, have any of you kind of looked into that? I won't demo that today. I think that they're going to cover that in the session tomorrow. But essentially what that is you want to be able to send XML rather than JSON, because it's more of a feed than an actual push notification being sent through WNS every time. And custom API enables that, because with just table scripts, you are limited to JSON. So it's kind of a really cool feature, a lot of functionality. Today we're going to walk through using a custom API to send a Twilio SMS, an SMS via Twilio, but there's just endless things you could do with that, and we're really excited to deliver that. Scheduler is the ability to run scripts on a schedule. You can run once if you just want to test something out and make sure it's triggering. For example, with a custom API, you can just require Twilio after you've uploaded the module. But if you wanted to just do a more explicit connection in Scheduler and then run once a few times just to test out the functionality before you transfer it over to custom API, totally doable. That's a really neat feature. And people have actually also found other uses for it, because you can obviously use it with other Windows Azure services. So some folks use it to keep their websites warm, and other folks use it to purge data periodically, a little bit of cleanup, maybe resize images at the end of every day. We're not going to cover that today. Nick Harris covered that in the TechEd North America session. And since I want to be able to talk to you guys a little bit about custom API and source control, unfortunately, I did have to make some hard decisions. So we are going to go ahead and get started now that I've given you that overview. Are there any questions at this exact moment? Oh, this is just covering our supported platforms in the TechEd branded app, PowerPoint slide. All right, so we are going to get started. Oh, you guys can't see this. Hang on. So there are two ways you can kind of create mobile services, either through the portal or through the command line. So what I have right here, and it's going to be fun, I'm like peeking over, but I'm going to kind of just walk you through a little bit of the CLI. It's very cool to see that you kind of have that option. So for example, a more advanced technique that they'll cover in another session, or that I can talk to you about afterwards, is all those server scripts, you might not want to actually write and edit them in the browser. Here you can just upload them through the CLI so that you're not having to actually type and hack away in the browser. But here we're just going to make sure that I am connected to Azure. It's just going to show all the functionality. And I've uploaded my credentials. There's a tutorial for doing that. But I'm just going to say create or Azure Mobile, if I can type properly today. Create. And what's the city somebody's from? I have to name this mobile service, and we're going to end up deleting it. So I'm looking for ideas. Holler them out. I mean, if I start thinking of things, it could get a little dangerous. So, where? London, beautiful. I'm going to even take it up a notch and say London calling, just for you. All right, so let's see what we got. It's going to execute the command on mobile create, and it's going to ask me for my SQL admin username. Right here, typically, if you were on your own local machine, you would have just entered that in that first command. But because I have all of you guys here, not that I don't trust you, but I think that I'm not going to display my password to everybody. So the default creation location for this is going to be East US. If I wanted to, for example, use Northern Europe, because we're closer to there, password. Okay, hang on one second. If I wanted to do Northern Europe, for example, I would have just hit -- location and said North Europe. So this will be creating. It'll take about a minute. Not only is this standing up a mobile service, which is which comes from a Node application we wrote on top of Windows Azure websites, but it's also standing up that SQL server, and so that you can use SQL database tables as much as you'd like. So that'll get going. Shouldn't have created it in East US. It's my own fault. For those of you who have used mobile services, did you typically find it was easier to get started through the Windows Azure portal or the command line? Holler? Portal? Yeah, typically? Okay, great. We'll do that next. So here you'll be able to see that now if I say Azure mobile list, it'll list all my mobile services, and you will be able to see London calling. Great name for a mobile service right there at the bottom. So really quickly, I'm going to delete that, and then we'll get started in the portal. I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of the command line. I think it's something we don't talk about very often, and it's something that people wonder about. So delete London calling, and I'm going to just add these extra commands. That's just going to delete the SQL server that underpins, so that I am not running up on any limitations or doing anything crazy like that. So while that is deleting, I'm going to come back over here. Okay. I'm just going to get this portal fired up really quickly. All right. Let's bring this over here. I'm going to steal this back from you guys. Okay. So the portal create process is actually pretty slick. I clearly have a few things up there. I'm showing you not a demo account, but my own account. So if I'm creating a new mobile service, it's going to be really simple. I'm just going to go new, compute, mobile service, create. And let's see, what's been my favorite part of Spain so far? The Mercado de San Miguel for sure. Has anyone else checked that out yet? I highly recommend it if you haven't. Fantastic food. Okay, so this is a cool thing I want to point out. This 20 megabyte SQL database is something we offer free to every Windows Azure subscription. Obviously not something that's really going to underpin an app using SQL heavily in production, but really great for development, or if you decided that table storage was a better data option for you, now you're not also having to pay for a SQL database. So we wanted to make sure that you're really only paying for what you use, in line with kind of the entirety of Azure. So I'm going to create a new instance. I've actually already used that free one on a different application. I'm going to go North Europe this time. Make sure that I use the password read and I agreed on, or else I'm going to lock him out when he jumps in here. That'd not be very gallant of me. All right. So this will take about the same amount of time to create. Might be a little quicker since we're in North Europe, but we'll see. So what we're going to walk through first is I'm going to kind of just show you the quick start experience, but I do want to let you know that you can connect existing applications, not just create new applications using mobile services. So for example, if you've already kind of developed like maybe a gaming app for Windows Store or something like that, and you're like, it'd be really great to add a leaderboard. Really easy to do with mobile services. You just kind of copy over the connection string to your client, and then you can just easily stand up that leaderboard in SQL database. And because if you add a little authentication too, everybody can kind of track their progress. It's a good time. All right. So this is the mobile services experience. This is the quick start. As you can see, this is where we route you into whatever SDK is appropriate for your preferred platform. Since today we're doing Windows Store, if I was going to go ahead and connect to an existing, I would go with this. And this is just all I'm saying. You'd create a table, set a little bit here, and then this is the connection you would need. And for Windows Store, we support both C# and WinJS. Today we're going to use C#, though. I think that was the vibe I got from everybody. All right, so I already have Visual Studio. I'm going to press this button, and this is going to automatically create a table in my SQL database called to-do item. So if I go over to the Data tab, you're going to see that there is a table indeed called to-do item. And this is, it's empty right now. It's just an index, but we will add some data, never fear. And I'm going to download and run my app so that you can see what that looks like. Oh, hang on. I have to unzip that file. Yes, I am aware. Thank you. Extract all. All right, fantastic. So this is going to open up in Visual Studio, and I'm going to pull this over there. I do think the mobile services team is a trustworthy source of. I love that warning. Are you sure you trust them? Yeah, I think they're okay. All right. So I'm going to quickly build F5. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Oh, how can we move this projection over? Just drag it over.
Yeah, here.
Go for it. We're playing projection bingo here today. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So today, if I was going to the Mercado de San Miguel, what would I need to do? I'd need to head to an ATM, maybe get some euros out. I didn't pack as many as I thought I would need. I thought American Express would be much more widely accepted. Somebody should have given me a heads up. All right. So head to an ATM, hail a taxi. And someone who's been to the Mercado, any other ideas? What was your favorite thing about the Mercado? Anyone? Maybe kava? It's not a bad thing. All right, excellent. So now that I have this, I'm going to head back over to the portal. And if I go to this Data tab, what you are going to see is those 3 records inserted. So as you can see, I didn't do anything to kind of set up a schema for this database. And the reason for that is that we have this really cool feature called Dynamic Schema. And you can set that under the Configure tab. And basically what that's going to do is, as long as that's enabled, whatever you pass, it's going to automatically create the columns that you need for that data you're pushing through. So I'm just going to show you where that is, because again, in a production application, you wouldn't want to leave that on. But today I am going to, just because we're going to use it a few times when we add, for example, another column for the channel when we do push notifications. So really quickly, I want to show you just the power of that dynamic schema. And the easiest way to do that is to just add another column when the item's created. So if I was going item.created, got to type slowly on this thing. It's new date. Hit save. And now, if I come back to the application, and I say, let's just say, walk home. Nothing like a good stretch. The weather's been beautiful. So I'm going to say walk home, and then I go back to the Windows Azure portal. And if I go to the Data tab, and I browse, what you're going to see is now there's this extra column called Created. And right there, it already has the timestamp for when that item was added. So again, very cool way to use dynamic schema, and definitely going to come in handy when we go to push notifications. So I'm going to switch back over to slides really quick. Does anyone have any questions so far? I know I'm speaking quickly, and I apologize. It's a bad habit of mine. All right.
On the PowerPoint.
Doop, doop, doop. Okay. So the data, just to recap really quickly, you will get a structured storage out of the box with SQL Database. You can flip dynamic schema on or off. Like I mentioned in that very introductory statement I made, you can point multiple client applications at the same database. You can use the same authentication system for multiple clients, and they're all able to take advantage of the same single mobile service. So the way that database gets partitioned, for those who are interested, is kind of just app1.todo-item, if that was the database name, and then app2. You can manage data through the portal in mobile services or SQL. You saw that I was kind of showing you the SQL experience within the mobile services navigation. But if you had gone to the navigation pane for regular old SQL, which you've probably used a bit, you would see that all of the servers and tables are also copied over there, and you can use them in that area as well. SQL Server Management Studio, of course, REST API, and command line tools. This is how I would typically create a mobile service. If I, again, didn't mind exposing my credentials. But just because we're recorded, I decided maybe not the best decision. So table scripts, like I showed you, it's basically just an automatic service REST API that's generated. It's on every insert, read, update, and delete. You're going to need to do a little bit different things for the delete function sometimes, and I can talk to you more about that. But by and large, if you're trying to get the same output from each script, you can reuse a lot of that code, which is great. So this is just interrupting the CRUD operations, and like I said, this is any server scripting we offer, which is table scripts, custom API scripts, and the scheduler. You can connect to other Windows Azure services or third-party services in that way. So these are kind of out of the box using the node modules for Azure and SendGrid. But even if you wanted to use Twilio and you didn't have the custom API feature, or didn't want to use that, you just have to be a little bit more explicit in that connection. But you could absolutely do it. And of course, because of the MS SQL object, querying is supported. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but for everybody who likes to kind of look them over later, I wanted to just call out some of the supported modules and globals. And we did a little bit there. So we're going to move on to push notifications. So basically with push notifications, there's three things going on. You're requesting a channel URI. You're registering that channel with your cloud service. Here it's going to be mobile services. With Windows Azure, you can build mobile applications in a lot of different ways, right? So you can use virtual machines if you really want to own the stack from soup to nuts. You can use cloud services if you'd like. You can use Windows Azure websites. I mean, we built mobile services on top of websites, so that's absolutely possible if you decide that you need some level of granular control we don't offer in one scenario. But mobile services is really going to be that turnkey solution for most applications you're going to want to build. And then again, you're going to have to authenticate and send the push notification. So today we're going to go through the WNS process. That's for Windows Store apps, but it would be very similar for MPNS, APNS, and GCM. The credentials are a little different for APNS. They make you bring over your certificate, and GCM uses an API key rather than a secret and key, but that's okay. It's pretty out of the box each way. We have tutorials available for everyone. But today we're going to do toast notifications. We also support for WNS tile, badge, and raw notifications. A raw notification would just be if you wanted to kind of send some information to the application itself, but not necessarily ping the user and draw their attention to it. You know, people have used raw notifications to light up little Sphero balls. I don't know if you guys have seen those, but they're these little, like kind of like an Arduino, but just a small ball that rolls around and lights up. For vehicles, people have been using raw notifications, so definitely a really powerful capability there. So with mobile services, you're going to basically have a pretty out-of-the-box solution for sending push notifications. How many of you have stood up your own push notification system before? Yeah, and how fun was it? I'm seeing a lot of smiles. You're going no. You're saying please never again. Would you say what, like 1,000 lines of code, 2,000? Where would you put it? Holler it out. It's fine. 2? 1? Something around there? A lot to maintain, a lot to build. So we're going to abstract a lot of that for you, and you're really just going to copy over your credentials, put a little snippet on the client, which we're going to do next. Okay. So I'm going to switch back over to the Windows Azure portal. So if we go to the push notifications tab, this is basically where we're going to be copying.
You gotta drag it over.
Oh, good point. This is where you're going to be copying everything over right here. And we're going to need to go to Windows in order to get that. So I think I have that open just to save us some time. Yes. Okay. So this is basically just the Windows Developer Dashboard. If you are familiar with it, you just kind of, I will move it over. You guys have to keep me honest on that. All right, so you just go to the Windows Developer Dashboard, and you're going to basically reserve your app name. So today we use Mercado San Miguel. So I'm going to reserve it and hope somebody hasn't taken it while I was sitting here talking to you guys. Great, so I'm going to save that. And then once I want to be able to get those credentials that I showed you, you need to copy over. I'm going to go to the services option. And then they give us a little shameless plug here. We work really well across groups. That makes me happy. But if you want to go ahead and get your credentials, you're going to follow this path. And again, we're not using Live Connect services for mobile services. We are using WNS. So we're going to go into authenticating your service. And see, this is where I say how much I trust you guys. So one thing I do want to call out that I have messed up several times before is that Windows goes their SID and then their client secret. We flip that in mobile services, so don't copy it into the wrong field. Oh, wrong one. Hang on. Great. Okay. So now I'm going to hit up. I have a trailing space. We're all over fixing that, don't worry. So yes, I would absolutely love for that to take effect immediately. You have the... okay. No problemo. So that's going to go ahead and create. I'm going to grab something over here. Okay, 1 second.
Open Word and go to Recent.
I know. Reed, is there anything you want to add while I grab something I'm looking for here?
Not at the moment.
Crack me up. Almost there. Sorry, guys. Doing a little behind-the-scenes work at the moment. You'll have to forgive me. I promise to be less rude in the future. Okay. So the next thing we are going to do after we've registered is we're going to head back into Visual Studio. And this is where we're going to do our connections. So let me bring that back over here. Okay, yes. Settle down. It's all good in the hood. Okay, excellent. So we are going to go to the app.xaml file. Here it is. And we're going to need to add a reference to Windows networking push notifications. So using Windows networking push notifications. Perfect. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to copy over a little snippet right below my credentials here. So this is where, because I created a new application through the Windows Azure portal and downloaded a packaged application, we gave you those connection strings that you would have to copy into an existing app anyways. So I'm just going to set up a little method that's just going to take the current channel and make sure we acquire it before we initialize anything. So on launch, hang on. Can everybody see, or should I make this bigger? Bigger? Okay. Hang on. No, I need to see it
in the
bigger.
bottom left.
Okay. I don't see it in here.
Left.
Oh, yeah. Good call. All right. So Now that we have the add on launched event handler, let's get my mouse back where it should be. Okay, so I'm going to simply add acquire push channel so that we're grabbing that every time the application launches. So moving back over to the main page.cs file. Oops, wrong one. This one. Fantastic. I am going to add a little snippet to the to-do item class, and this is where that dynamic schema comes in. So right here is where you're seeing those columns happen. And we had that column with text, complete, the ID. I'm going to add another one for the channel. So that's just going to make sure that we're not only grabbing the channel every time, but we're storing it for the devices so we can make sure that the push notification gets routed appropriately. Okay. So then we're going to update the button save click event handler, because what we want to do is actually every time somebody hits save, we want to send a push notification just for the purposes of this demo. You could do it on any action, right? You could do it on refresh, you could do it anywhere. We're going to do it here on button save click. So let me just update that really quick to make sure I don't miss any brackets. I've been known to do that occasionally. Okay, so now that we're kind of set on our client side, we do have to go back and use those table scripts that we talked about in the portal. So I'm going to boogie back over there. Go to the data tab. And as much as I loved our little item.created script, we're going to put something even better in. I know, it's hard to believe. So this is essentially, I'm going to walk you through this in a moment. Okay. So what this script is doing is it's basically going to send a toast text notification to the channel that we've grabbed when that data item was inserted into the to-do list. So we're doing push.wns.send, and then we're specifying the type of notification we'd like to send. Here we're going to do a toast text number 3. It's just basically going to send one line of text. It's going to pop up. If you wanted to add something a little more exciting, like perhaps like an image or a sound, you can definitely do that too. It's all documented. You can grab what you want. But for this, I figured this would be enough. Okay. So, moment of truth. Back to Visual Studio. And let's see. Drag this back over. Where is, come back, come back, come back. There we go. Okay, so how about print boarding pass? It's important if you're traveling, as I will be after San Miguel. And, ooh, that didn't come through. Let's check why. Interesting, okay. Okay, let's see what we have going on here. Let's see, we've got the class. That's working fine. Not getting an error there. Okay. Well, I will come back and debug that in a second, but I do want to show you it working, just so that you have an idea of kind of what the functionality looks like. So I'm going to run back over here and grab an application I wrote earlier. If I can get out of that screen, perfect. Okay. I want markets in where is it? There we go. Okay. So this is essentially the same application we're building today, but one that I didn't miss a bracket on, very likely. So let's just run this really quickly. This one also has Twitter authentication. We're jumping ahead. I mean, it's crazy. We're just going at lightning speed. So let me just quickly log in. Okay, yes, I'm trustworthy. Excellent. I think so too. Okay, show me a toast. Save. Oh, it's popping up right here. That's why you're not seeing them. That helped. All right, well, I won't extend next time, but it's basically just a plain gray bar. I didn't customize it or anything like that. I probably should have. Next time, I promise you will have a more thrilling user experience. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give Reed a chance to talk, so you get a little break from me, and he's going to take you through Twitter authentication. So go ahead, Reed.
All right. So I want to talk about the various different authentication methods that you can use with mobile services.
You got to flip it.
Oh, I got to close that guy.
Going through my pictures now. I see how it is.
There we go. Almost. All right, so I want to go through some of the out-of-the-box. What happened there? Out-of-the-box support for authentication methods. As you know, every app out there wants at least the option to be able to authenticate a user. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to attach to an account they already have. With so many different apps and services that we have and use every day, we have all collected a lot of different accounts. So it helps to have a centralized account such as a Microsoft account, or you can use your Facebook account or Twitter if you have maybe more of a social network-focused app that you're building. Or you can use the Google authentication methods. So today, as Miranda just previewed a bit, we're going to run through the method to use Twitter. On the mobile services end, they're very similar in ease of use and some of the ways that they work as well. Also want to mention that those are the simplest ways, but you can still connect through Windows Azure Active Directory, through the Azure module, as well as on-prem ADFS, although it will require a little more effort at this point. It's not something that is just a switch on out of the box. Once you've enabled this kind of authentication, we want to be able to actually authorize the users to use certain instructions on the data that they are interacting with. So there are 4 basic permissions levels for Windows Azure Mobile Services tables. The default one is for everyone. So as Miranda just created an app there, anyone could access that table if they had the correct way to get to it. And the one that we're going to work with today is only authenticated users. So we don't care who you are, as long as you've authenticated with our app, and we've at least logged who you are coming into the app as. The other option is only anyone with the application key. So this is, you only want people to be able to access through your particular app. It's not a public API that you can access through other applications or over the web, or directly through a browser. And finally, there's the only scripts and admins permissions level. And what that means is maybe you want to create a mobile service that runs, or a portion of a mobile service that runs some administrative tasks, and you've scripted those, or you want to be able to run them manually. Logging, for instance, something you want to keep locked down only to admin and script. So that can be very useful as well. And even beyond that, from the default table level permissions, you can get a little more granular with server-side scripts, going down to looking at the user level as well as authenticating against a particular user ID. So with that, I'll get started on showing how you can integrate the mobile services app with a Twitter account. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is prepare our Twitter account for this app. So we need to get an application key and make sure that they allow us to authenticate. So Miranda is already logged in here, and we're going to go over to My Applications, create a new application today. So call this Mercado San Miguel. So here you can put in whatever description you would like. For the website, yeah, at this point the website does not really matter. This could be something you want to point your users to. So we can do Windows Azure / mobile services.
Mobile.
Just mobile. And then the most important part here is the callback URL. And so this is going to be an HTTPS URL. And I'm going to grab that from my notes here. Or I guess we'll have it as the
HTTPS mercadosanmiguel.azure-mobile.net.
Spell that right. Was it Azure Mobile? All right. Go ahead and agree with them here. I'm not sure I can read that. All right, perfect. So from here, we'll go back to the Azure portal. And got a lot here. So here we're going to go over to the Identity tab. And as that's loading, we're going to need the consumer key and the consumer secret. So I'll go here and copy the consumer key right now. And as you can see, the Microsoft account and the Facebook settings, they're all very similar. Anything you can put on this page, but we'll just do Twitter for now. Get my secret code here. And we'll save that. We'd like it to be immediate as well. OK. So now I'm going to go back to Visual Studio and show that, first we can stop this guy. And show that as we try to run this one,
You have to change the permissions on the table.
oh, I didn't change the permissions, so you are authorized at the moment. That's not. All right, so now we're going to go back to the data table that's actually accessing. Open this up, go to the permissions. And here you'll see the permissions I mentioned before. We're going to just set this, all of these to authenticated users. Make sure that saves. And then we'll go back to our app. Here you go. The first time an unauthorized error is a good thing. So now we're going to add in actually the code to be able to authenticate a user and get them set up to access that data. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the main page here. And here, let me blow this up a bit. Went back down. OK, so in order to get the dialog, we're going to need to add a reference here to Windows UI.popups. And then we're going to go down to the bottom and have our user authenticate on the onNavigated to property. If you want to do that on launched, you can do that as well. Let me get my navigate method here. Come on. All right. and bring this guy over. Basically just set up a mobile services user and an authenticate method here to check for the user, say we'd like to log in by Twitter, and just display a quick message once we've logged in. If not, we'll prompt them to do so. So here I'm just going to change this to call the authenticate method before we get the items. And we're going to do this async. All right. Go through and try to load that up again. Uh-oh. How'd that get in there? Okay, so here you'll see the first thing it's going to do on getting to this page is ask for us to authenticate using Twitter. So Miranda has graciously shared her Twitter password. Shows a lot of trust. And I'll log in here. Twitter says OK, replies with the user ID, and we can add we are authenticated. There we go. OK. All right. So that's the Twitter authentication. Very similar setup for Facebook or Windows, Microsoft account, or Google account. And I'm going to let Miranda start with the next part.
Oh, yeah, this is the fun part.
Git.
Yeah, so we're going to play around a little bit with local Git. It is a preview feature, so that means it's always a rodeo, and I'm excited. But it's pretty awesome. I'll close this puppy. All right, hop back in here. Okay, I don't want that either. Thank you. That's what I want. Great. So what we're going to basically do is grab git bash. Oh, bash, I know how to spell. There we go. Drag this over for you. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is, now that I have Git installed, if you didn't already, you would have to go through that process. But to use it with my mobile service, I'm going to need to go to that dashboard, which has a lot of really good information. So my mobile service URL, location, a little bit of information about monitoring. You can see we've been playing around a little bit today. And I'm going to hit Set Up Source Control. Yes, it's a preview feature, but I feel lucky. So that's going to go ahead and configure. And then once it does, I'm going to change my credentials really quick again so that Reed and I can both use this. So give that a minute. And let's check out the configure tab. Hang on one second. Okay. I did set up source control. I should have given it a minute. I'm a little impatient sometimes. So basically what we're going to do, though, in this part of the demo is we're going to basically just upload the Twilio module. That's going to expose us to a lot of really awesome functionality in terms of sending SMS, calls, etc. So the first thing I'm going to do as soon as this... oh, good. I can reset my credentials. Grab this mouse back. So I'm going to just reset this to use the password that we both know. Great. So now that that's all ready to go, I'm going to head over to the configure tab, and it's going to show my credentials over here. So let me pull the bash back up. All right. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is clone this. So I'm going to need that URL, but I'm going to have to copy it to Notepad really quick. Copy. Notepad, be my friend. Excellent. Okay. So pull this back up. And what I'm going to want to do is just quickly make sure I'm in the right place. Yes, I did mean that. Okay, great. All right, so let me just find out where I am right now. Source control. Script sources. Okay, hang on one second. No. Okay. Then get back. Okay, so let's go in here, and then we're going to change over to script sources. Well, I definitely do have a directory called script sources.
Do you go to C first?
Yeah, let's go back over there. Forgot where I put that puppy. So now I should see it. Yep. Script sources, perfect. So, new machine. Okay, fantastic. So now that I'm in script sources, I'm going to git clone this URL. So HTTPS or PS Mercado San Miguel .scm Azure Mobile.net whack Mercado git. Great. So now what we're going to be able to see is that this is going to be in my script sources file. Let's just pull that up really quick so you can see that. Oh, it's over here. I'll bring it back over. Okay, so I come over here to script sources. Oh, not users, script sources. Come on. There we go. So I have the ones I created earlier, but I also have Mercado San Miguel that we just made right now. And I don't have anything in there, but just showing you kind of how to route that. So now if I come back over here, we get to start doing the fun part. So that's empty right now, but I'm just going to show that, basically just your standard git add, oh, it does need my password. Oh, it's on to me. Hang on one second. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right, 1 second. Okay, come on. Yeah, okay, so git add. Got it. All right. You guys are my best friends today. I love it. We're going to do this as a team. That's fantastic. San Miguel. Mobile.net. Awesome. Okay, so now I can enter my credentials. Great. Come on, show me the money. It'll take a second. So the next thing we're going to do is just basically, okay, so that's going to get ready. That's fine. So the next thing we're going to do is use something called kudu exec. Kudu is, it's just a code name we made for this feature for source control. You guys might have heard it. Oh, there it goes. So we're just going to go ahead and go in there, and that's where we're going to add the Twilio module. So to do that, basically copying this over, but then I'm going to go to kudu exec. Index.html. I'm going to authenticate again. We're all about security here. Okay, so this is the first thing I'm going to do. Let me just make sure I'm in the right area. Yes, beautiful. Okay, so root app data. Wait, hang on. Got this going the wrong way. Root app data. Scripts and API. So now I'm in the APIs folder. So that's scripts. Within scripts, there's going to be 4 different items, and I should actually probably just go back and show you that. 1 second, I'll do that. Whatever, hang on. Okay, so I'm writing an API. But I will go back and show you later. But basically, there are 4 different ones. So there's API, which is the custom APIs we're working with right now. You can add your own modules. There's table for table scripts, which is all in the CRUD operations. And then there's schedule for scheduled scripts, and shared for scripts you might want to share in between custom API scripts or even share with other users. So now I'm just going to do an npm install Twilio. And once this goes through, what's really cool is we're going to just be able to require the module. So I'm going to hand it back over to Reed to do a custom API that he texts himself, since I'm not going to pay his data charges. But essentially, you're just going to be able to say var Twilio equals require Twilio. So I'll let you carry on, Reed.
Yeah. So if any of you have used Twilio before, it's a very cool service for sending SMS and making phone calls. And so right now, I'm just going to go... wrong computer there. Back over to the portal here. And go to the API tab. And first I'm going to add the server-side script needed in the custom API to actually create the API. And then add a few lines of codes in the client in order to call this custom API. So we're going to call this just text read. Keep it simple. Permissions. Anyone with the app key. So again, we'll just do this easily. And I'll get ready to move this code over. All right, so that's all provisioned now. Go over to the script. So it's just got a default script in here. I'm going to overwrite that. It's my script. As Marina said, including the Twilio modules, 1 line of code. It's got all the rest of the code already installed in the custom API. Create a Twilio client using the app key for that API, as well as the authorization code. And then here we'll be sending a SMS. And I've got just a simple little callback here to tell me what happens. So I'll save that. And then we'll go back over to the client and make sure we can call that. So that's updated now, all ready to go.
Where's your phone?
You'll see.
Oh, okay.
You'll see. So now we'll go over to the button click. Just going to do it on save here after the item saves for now. This is something you could trigger on anything else. Someone changed the value. Maybe your admin wants to know. Maybe someone's tracking something and wants an update. So we should have got this all set up. We've got our
different connection string.
What?
You need a different connection string.
Oh yeah. So we'll go back.
Dashboard.
Oh.
Manage keys. Bottom. Center bottom. The manage keys.
Oh. Gotta copy my new application key in here. And that should be right. And we're going to invoke this as an async.
You gotta write. Want me to hold it?
Sure. Just hold it up. All right, we've authenticated here. Can't send text to anyone. And we've sent this. Should be making a call. I hope I have service in this room. Maybe. Oh, there it goes. send from your Twilio trial account. So there's just a simple way to send a text. If you want to build in more functionality with Twilio, they have a great API for reading back into those texts and responding. So that demonstrates how the custom API works. That can be really great if you want to process some more data that you're maybe gathering from someone else before you send it back to the client, or vice versa. So it's a great way to just make sure that the data that your client is getting is prepared and formatted the way that you would like to be receiving it. So with that, I think I'll let Miranda finish up, and we'll have some time for questions.
Yes, absolutely. So the last thing we just wanted to cover quickly before we really open it up for questions was, oh, we are behind in our slides. I'm going to get slapped on the wrist. All right. So diagnostics, logging, and scaling. Whoops, go back. As you saw in the portal, API calls CPU time data out. Logging is as simple as just console.error, console.log. And scaling, that I did want to show you guys because it's pretty sweet. All right. So just like kind of anything in the with Windows Azure, you're able to scale up incredibly quickly. So all I do is go to the Scale tab. And it's going to throw me all sorts of warnings on this account, but that's OK. And right now, I just have an app running. This app is running in the free tier. If I wanted to flip over to reserve, I'd be like, yes, go ahead and remove my spending limit. I feel good today. Yep, I understand. Thank you. So to start, I'll be running on one small instance, and that's kind of what underpins this mobile service. But if I wanted to scale up to 7, I could do that right in the portal, save, and then I pretty much can handle whatever capacity I need. If I decided that I really just want to mess with our runners and go back down to 3, no problem. The last thing I'm going to leave up on the slide so that as we ask questions, anyone watching online can take a look, is this list of helpful resources with aka.ms/common WAMS called out. It's a really great collection that you won't kind of find on the Windows Azure website because it just collects a lot of really great posts and content and samples that not only we create, but the community is also created and published. So we want to make sure everybody can find those really easily. The rest of them are also really useful links, the REST API reference, the SDKs, but definitely that aka.ms/common WAMS will be your best friend. So are there any questions? We have about 12 minutes, and I know that I will get the hook, but I'd love to answer that you have right now. Bueller? OK. Well, if you don't have any questions right now, that's totally fine. Like I said, both myself and Reed will be around all day today and tomorrow. At the conference, we'll be at the Windows Azure booth. You saw my Microsoft account like 9 times, so I'm pretty easy to find. You can also catch me on Twitter. But we'll stick around for a little bit if anything comes up afterwards. But I really appreciate you guys coming down and taking the time to learn a little bit more about building connected applications using Windows Azure and kind of the different functionality that it has. If you're interested in learning more, I definitely encourage you to go to the sessions later this week. Tomorrow, Steve Sanderson's giving a really great one covering kind of HTML, how to use Xamarin with mobile services. Going to touch a little bit on native iOS and Android. Obviously, he won't be able to hit it all. As you saw, we ran out of time with just one platform. But another one of our team members will be giving a session on kind of building real-world apps. So kind of what does that mean when you're versioning your scripts? What are some best practices there? And he'll be going through that as well. So highly encourage you to check that out. And if you have any questions, shoot them our way. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.